though, right?
Yeah, it says you are, but the software hasn't. Now you are. It's
Okay.
that 20 to 30-second delay before it hits Zoom or YouTube. 6:04, and you're actually live now.
That's it. I'm denying the 411-page document that you wanted.
That means we'll have to ask for much more than that free resolution for a lot of document storage.
God bless you, Carrie, for reading all 411 pages.
I need a lot more than blessing, I think.
All right. Do a quick roll call. Mark Davies.
Here.
Scott Harrington.
Here.
And John Rafter is excused. Committee members, was there any corrections or additions or subtractions to our last meeting minutes?
Not that I saw.
Okay. Mark, if you want to leave your mic open, go for it.
Yeah.
Hearing none, we'll accept the minutes as provided. David, I think there's only one item here on the agenda with your name on it, so why don't we start with you? You're going to update us on the contract renewals.
Yes, thanks, Len. I think, Ginny, you have the narrative on that?
Yes, I provided them a narrative. Do you want me to go over it, David?
Sure.
Okay, there's 3 contracts being presented to you. One is from ARC. It's a $1,500 annual contract with a $460 capital contribution that goes towards future bus services. The same basically written contract also for AO Fox Hospital. And then the Southside Mall is a $6,000 annual contract, also with a $460 capital contribution towards the future bus purchases. This is a 1-year contract. Recently, we're doing this by 1 year. It gives us time to study the passenger activity to see if the price should be adjusted. And all the above contracts are being renewed at the same cost that they were expiring at. And all of these contracts have also been reviewed by the City Attorney, Dave Mercer.
Okay. Any questions from the committee members? I just had one, David. Is this a little bit of an increase from last year?
No, it's exactly the same as it was last year. There's no increase.
No increase. Okay. Hearing no objection, I guess we'll move it up to full council for vote.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. You got out of here easy, David. Enjoy the rest of your night. Before we go into the financials, Ginny, I just wanted to go through some of the agenda here. If Greg and Katie could go over the GIS specialist.
Sure. Is Greg here? I don't actually see him joining us yet. Okay, I guess if he's not here, then I can talk about it. So 2 weeks ago at actually 3 weeks ago now, at our last committee meeting, we had indicated to you that it was a priority hire for us just because of various workloads and things going on in the engineering department. This is a position that has been budgeted since January 1st. We just had held off on filling it just until we knew a little bit more about the financial situation given the pandemic. So given your approval to us, we move forward. We've made a conditional offer to a candidate and we'd like to present that to you. Oh, and there's Greg, so he'll be able to talk about how the position fits into the staff a little bit more. But what we're looking for approval from you all is to hire this individual. We would like to withhold the person's name out of respect for his current employer. He has 20 years of GIS experience in a municipal setting, which is wonderful. We think that he's going to make a huge impact on the workload in the engineering department and throughout various city operations, just because this individual will support many departments through the scope of the work. So the offer that we would like to bring for your consideration. It's a GIS specialist position. It would be a $57,500 annual salary, which is within the established range of the admin manual, which is $50,000 to $65,000. So for somebody with 20 years of experience, I think we did pretty well on negotiating the salary. And this is one where we would respectfully ask you to consider a concession on the vacation time. So currently the admin manual offers it's 2 weeks of vacation time after 1 year of service, and then vacation time increases from there based on years of service. Now, for someone that's obviously a very entry level offer as established by the admin manual. For someone who is coming in with 20 years of experience, that's a very hard sell because people have 4, 5, 6 weeks of accumulated vacation through their current employer. So similar to what we've done before with a couple other hires, we would just ask you to consider, in addition to the salary mentioned, $57,500, giving a concession that would be written into the motion that would give the person 3 weeks of vacation time that they could use and accrue after 6 months of service. So it would be giving the person an extra week upfront. They just wouldn't be, able to use the time until after they've been with the city for 6 months.
Was that part of the negotiating?
It was a request. I mean, the person was, just obviously values their time with their family. They've got some commitments. It's an offer that we've extended before, recognizing that the admin manual provides for somewhat of an entry-level benefit to employees who necessarily may not be entry-level. This is a professional level position. So yes, the candidate did request it.
I'm good with it. Mark?
Yeah, I guess my way of looking at it is, sounds like this candidate will not need to have as much training through Greg or folks in his office as because he's well established. Obviously, there might be some training, of course, that takes place. But if we were hiring somebody without this particular background, whatever losses we have by giving this person a week would be absorbed by the extra training that has to be done by Greg and his staff, by Katie. So in my mind, this is a win-win. We pick up somebody who walks in with 20 years of experience, requires less training, and the trade-off is giving an extra week of vacation. I think that's a valuable. Trade-off.
Yep, totally agree. Scott. Mr. Techie, do you have your internet? You're all set?
Didn't hear a word that was going on, but if you want to pass whatever up, go ahead.
So Katie and Greg found a GIS technician that has 20 years experience. They're willing to come in at a negotiated salary of, I believe it was $50,700, correct me if I'm wrong. And the way the admin manual is written, it says that you would have to work a year before you get 2 weeks. Part of the negotiating was to move forward with 3 weeks after 6 months. So far, Mark and I said that we were good with that. Based on the years of experience, this will eliminate the burn-in period of having someone new with a less amount of experience. And so we see the valuation is coming back with the 20 years experience. Okay, we'll move that one forward.
Len, I'm sorry. I don't know if I misspoke. The salary is $57,500.
Oh, $57,500.
57. Okay. I apologize if I was not clear on that before. 57.5, and that is still within the admin manual established range.
Okay, of 50 to 60. Okay. Mark, are you still good? Yeah. Just by the way, you're muted.
Yep. Yeah. No, I conversations I've had with Greg over the years, GIS is tough, it's so valuable. So to find somebody that has this amount of experience that's coming in, this is fantastic. So I think this is certainly a good move, and I'm certainly supportive of it. 57.5, or, it's fine.
I think he's going to move a big rock. So congratulations, both of you, for finding someone qualified.
Yeah.
Okay.
You all, we appreciate it.
Katie, you want to go on to the city clerk appointment?
I just thought I would provide a very brief update as to where we are with that. Obviously, I mentioned at our last meeting that Nancy Powell has put in her official retirement. So the job is posted and we're accepting applications. First review of applications will begin on October 9th. We're expecting to have interviews shortly thereafter. So I think we're on target to have somebody in here. My target hiring date is around the 1st of December. So that will give for about a month of overlap before Nancy actually retires. And then obviously, we've talked about, making a conglomerate department and, making some combinations and kind of changing the way that the office functions. The person who ends up, the successful candidate will kind of determine the next steps as to where we go from there. So that's pretty much where we are, but I think we're on target for a December 1st hire from my perspective.
Okay. And then that kind of falls into the next item down, which is the overall picture, right, between finance and the clerk. I mean, the efficiencies that you and Greg kind of laid out for us 3-4 months ago.
Sure. Well, actually, Len, it's a different subject. No, I didn't. I mean, on the clerk efficiencies, again, I think that, the candidate who ends up getting picked for that job will kind of determine the next steps in that process. So we do have a very strong internal applicant, but there are applicants from the outside. So depending on who ends up getting the job, it will kind of determine, where we go. The bullet that I had on there for finance personnel staffing is an unrelated matter. If you'd like me to still continue on talking about that, I can.
Okay, well, then I misunderstood. So let me just back up to Mark and Scott. Do you have any questions about the city clerk appointment? Okay, hearing none. Please move forward with what you need to do for the city clerk's position. And then moving on to the finance personnel staffing.
Sure. So as you recall, 3 months ago, Ginny and I had come to you. We had been attempting to recruit an accountant candidate. That we had a great candidate. The person rescinded. We were kind of left with, oh my gosh, this is a major payroll crunch time. We're not sure how we're going to handle the workload. So Ginny and I together came up with a plan where you had very generously awarded the personnel assistant, Dave Corey, an $8,000 annualized stipend to take on additional duties in the finance office relating to payroll and retirement and benefits and such. That stipend is set to sunset at the end of this month. So the agreement at the time had been that we would, really take a hard look at the staffing in each department over that 90-day period and come back to you with a recommendation for how we were going to handle the duties permanently. So there's two options as I see them. The first option is our recommendation to you, which is we allocate some of the duties to Dave, the personnel assistant, on a permanent basis that were previously being handled by the accountant. That's other parts of payroll, that's retirement and benefit reporting, that's dealing with some retiree issues, things of that nature. With that, we would be requesting a $4,000 base adjustment for Dave because they are higher level duties. Dave's base is $41,000. The accountant that was previously handling them is a $50,000 job. It just doesn't seem right or fair to ask Dave to accept higher level work at his current salary. So that is the first part. The second part is that while Ginny and I and Joe and Dave, we all worked very closely together on this, we would love to be able to leave that position vacant as a cost savings measure, but the workload just dictates that there needs to be a person there. So rather than hiring an accountant at the $50,000 level, we'd like to recommend that in addition to Dave receiving a base adjustment for additional duties, that we hire an administrative specialist, which is a lower clerical level title, to absorb the rest of the work. So if you're looking at this from a cost perspective, what's budgeted right now, what we had planned on doing in the beginning of the year is to fill one $50,000 position. What we're requesting after our 90-day review is the $4,000 adjustment for Dave, plus hiring an administrative specialist, which is a $30,000 job. So that is accomplishing the same thing at a $16,000 annual cost savings. So that's our recommendation to you. I understand it's, a really hard time to be asking for hires and budget, base adjustments, but ultimately the workload and the type of work really dictate, some sort of permanent solution to where the work will go.
Katie, what's the name of that title again?
Certainly, it's administrative specialist. So Ginny right now has 2 other administrative specialists within her department, Gail and Lisa.
Mhm.
So we would be asking, rather than that accountant spot, to hire it at that lower level. So that way she could have 3 cross-trained people who could all pitch in and help on various accounting tasks and some of the personnel work as well.
So do you have a current list of applicants that you can start having a conversation with?
There's an established eligible list. However, I wanted to talk to you all, to get your direction on this. I'd like to canvass the list. I'm not sure that there will be anyone on it who's interested, just based on how a lot of the applicants had responded previously. So we would most likely be looking at a provisional hire.
Okay. Scott or Mark, any questions?
Well, just for the interest of being thorough, Katie, you said there was 2 options. I recognize that this was the recommended option. What was the second option?
Second option would be to leave Dave's base as it is with no change in duties, and we hire the $50,000 level accountant position.
I like your first option.
Well, I mean, Ginny and I prefer the first option too. I mean, we feel strongly that it will accomplish the work in a very controlled and efficient way, while also realizing a little bit of cost savings. I know $16,000 isn't that much, but ultimately Ginny has a lot of changes in her office. Our purchasing agent will be retiring in December. So the quicker that we, make permanent arrangements for the workload, the easier all of these parts of the transition will be.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be kind of flippant about my response. It sounds as though you've thought this out and that you can accomplish the task. You could accomplish option 2 with option 1. And it does save us $16,000. And frankly, I think it's good for Dave. It seems like he's done an admirable job stepping in. And if we're able to, frankly, kind of help him in terms of, well, he's really helping us, but it makes a lot of sense. He gets a little bit of a salary boost and maintains some of those duties. I think it's good to invest in the people we have.
And Ginny, you're good with all this? You're muted.
Very much so, yes. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to make sure you're good. Okay, we'll move that also up to full council. And do you have a signed MOA with the police sergeants?
That's actually a different MOA. I'm sorry, I'm really striking out tonight. I apologize. That MOA that we had previously discussed is close to being finalized for extending the contract. They were very thankful for the council being willing to, consider it, but it's being reviewed by their legal team right now. But this is actually a different MOA.
We need to go into executive session.
It can be handled in open session, or at least
Okay.
started there.
Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So this kind of falls into the category of, we try new things, we try a new approach, and sometimes it works great and other times it doesn't. In the last round of contract negotiations, we had negotiated with the sergeants a pay arrangement that said that they would move on the salary schedule 1 time per year on their anniversary date. What's typical in public service is that you get a January 1st percentage cost of living adjustment. And then based on your years of service, based on your anniversary date with the municipality, then you get a longevity adjustment on your anniversary date. And that kind of 2 times per year is exactly what had been the arrangement forever and ever with the sergeants union. Because our payroll process is literally a paper and pencil process. I mean, Dave literally tracks on his Outlook calendar and through KVS and through an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, this person was hired on March 1st. So this day they get this raise, and January 1st, they get this. So it was really just a way to kind of simplify the process. The sergeants were amenable to it. We agreed that it was a good thing to do. So we put it into practice. And I just found out 2 weeks ago why it was a bad idea to do. And that is that an unintended consequence of this is that we have a sergeant who was earning, who has 5 years of seniority over another sergeant. And the sergeant with 5 years more seniority earned a lower salary for 10 months out of the year based on when their anniversary dates were. So the junior sergeant was hired as a sergeant in January. They're both at the top pay step. Junior sergeant got his raise in January. Senior sergeant, who's been on the job 5 more years because of that negotiated provision, didn't move until October. So we had someone for 10 months out of the year with 5 years more seniority earning less than a junior employee. And it just really, it's messy. The optics of it aren't good for employee morale. And it just doesn't seem really fair to me. Again, it was one of those unintended consequences. So after that long explanation, my recommendation and what I'm hoping to do is just to revert that section of the contract back to what it had been historically, which is you get your cost of living adjustment, your percentage increase on January 1st, and your longevity increase on your anniversary date.
Questions? Scott, your internet is still working, right? You're not moving.
I hope it is. It keeps going in and out. So I only heard about every 4th word that she said.
I hope you're kidding.
No, but don't. I'm really not.
So
I'm waiting for YouTube to catch up.
Right. So they want to revert back to the previous pay scale where they received their annual in January. And when it comes time on their anniversary date, they'll get their next bump up for longevity.
Exactly. And that's what it is with all of our bargaining units other than the PBA. The PBA has the same arrangement, but they've been there forever. And it's also, it's a bit of a different, situation with the PBA than the sergeants. But I mean, ultimately it would go a long way for employee morale. It's hard to tell a person who's got 5 more years of seniority, you're going to earn less pay for 10 months out of the year than a more junior person.
Right. So we're not looking at a retro. We're just looking at starting January 1st with this one, right?
January 1st or as soon as settled. I mean, obviously from their perspective, the sooner the better, but I mean, I could take January 1st back to them and I think that they would be amenable to that. I mean, the alternative is we leave it where it is and continue to have these problems year after year.
So Katie, I'm sorry, Len, I could, I think that if I heard you correctly, the only reason that you made that switch was basically for ease of operations, to be able to kind of hit them all at the same time. And the unintended consequence certainly wasn't seen by anybody, but had that. And it really kind of hurt the officers in terms of that 10-month period. So, but by switching back, it's certainly fair to the officers, and it's maybe a little more cumbersome for us on our end to have to deal with that. But it seems like it's the fair and the correct thing to do. So there's no loss here. It's just maybe a bit of loss of time and loss of efficiency. And that's about it. Is that correct?
Well, it does ultimately end up costing the city a little bit. It's not that it costs a lot more money. It's just that we have to lay the money out sooner. So for 10 months out of this year, based on the anniversary dates, we had this senior officer earning a lower salary than he would have had his January 1st step been in place. So yes, it's not that it's necessarily spending more money, but there is a cost to it, again, because we're laying the money out a little bit sooner. So I want to be very clear on that. I mean, the other part of this too, Jenny and I are hoping very soon we have, and Ginny, you can speak to this, but we have budgeted a capital project for a payroll upgrade, a timekeeping upgrade, to move us away from this paper and pencil system that we have, that will really revolutionize the way that we're handling timekeeping throughout city operations. I mean, we're hoping that the product that we're getting close to selecting to bring to you all for consideration, hopefully within the next month to 6 weeks here, will completely change the way we're processing things, remove that paper and pencil piece, and also free up a lot of time from our staff to move on to more important projects. I mean, right now, people literally punch a time clock. We take those punched cards and enter it into an Excel spreadsheet, which calculates things based on complicated contracts and rules. We then take the information in the Excel spreadsheet and enter it into KVS, which is our accounting software. And then it's checked 2 or 3 times to be sure it was done right. I mean, it's like a 10-step process. I know I'm really making this very grandiose, but it's a huge process that we're really hoping to update to make it easier for the staff, and truthfully take a lot less time. So, I mean, I'm hoping that the ease of administration piece will kind of go away if we're able to get a better payroll system in place, because then it will all be automatic through the timekeeping system.
Any other questions? So do you guys want to start today, or do you want to wait until January 1st?
Len, who are you asking that of? Are you asking that of?
Well, I'm looking at you and I see you moving around, but Scott, there he goes. He wasn't moving, so I wondered if his internet had dropped. So he's gone now.
So I'm comfortable supporting Kay's recommendation.
Yeah, I am too. So I guess you got 2 out of, well, hold on. What did he say?
I could catch up with him later tomorrow, then, if you'd like, so I can explain to him what he.
Okay. He says he's trying to get back on, but I would say that we should move this up and take care of it as soon as you can get a signed document.
The sergeants will very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Jenny, I sincerely doubt that there's anyone on the committee that's going to object to the fact that you worked hard and you obtained 80% of the $55,000 police vehicle. So I think you were asking for permission to accept the 44,000, right?
Yes, we will. We want to be able to award the bid on condition of when the grant gets executed. We don't want to put the purchase order out there until we've got the signed paperwork.
Yeah.
So, but the vendor is willing to hold the price until the paperwork is in place.
Mark, do you have an objection of accepting $44,000 for the $55,000 vehicle?
No.
Okay. Scott, we're approving the $44,000 grant that's helping pay for the $55,000 OPT vehicle. Do you have an objection to accepting the grant?
No, sir, I trust you.
Well, then what you're really giving approval for is to award the bid to the vendor.
All right.
You've already accepted the grant. You did that back in the spring.
Right. But overall, you went out and you got a grant that paid for 80%. If you could only have done that for the $183,000, that would have been awesome.
Well, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. It was David Hoteling that went out for the grant. I just signed the paperwork.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, either way, that's passed. We'll move that up to full council. I want to just say thank you very much to you and Katie for getting out there and negotiating from I believe it was a 7.38% increase on the health insurance, and you got that down to 0. So I don't know if you took them out to McDonald's or whatever you did, but congratulations.
7.23, just to be fair.
Sorry, I read it once. I didn't memorize it. Sorry. But either way, whatever you did, thank you very much. I appreciate the 0% increase. So unless one of the other 2 committee members is disapproving the fact that you got a negotiated 0% increase in health insurance, which I don't think's ever been done before, I would say we're going to move that to full council. So hearing none, we'll move that up. Okay, so the budget adjustments, do any of the committee members have an objection to what Jenny laid out for the budget adjustments? Any questions?
You're making
No, I
my
don't-
job easy tonight.
I don't have any questions about that.
Okay.
Ugh, we just lost him again. Hey, but John is here. John, you got to unmute, bro. Not yet. You're still muted, John. You're almost there. Scott, did you have any objection? You phased out there for a second.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Am
John,
I
you look. Yeah, there you are. Hey, John.
Hi,
How
Hi,
are you?
John.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I got something
Well,
to show you.
we're slamming through the agenda. So,
Look,
do you have any objections to the? We're doing the budget adjustment. So basically, what Jenny laid out for us of where she's adjusting. Do you have any objections or questions or concerns?
no questions, concerns. If it's from
Okay.
Jenny, it's good.
Okay. Well, we'll move that up to full council then. And then your timing is perfect, John. We are into the year-to-date revenue report that Jenny's going to give us. All right. I think, Jenny, we've cleared the slate and we're ready
Okay,
for you.
All right, well, thank you, Len. I just want to emphasize that I know the finances and all the numbers can sometimes be overwhelming, sometimes too detailed, but part of our responsibilities, and which will be checked in audit and also in state audit, is the elected officials being informed on a routine basis. So by me providing these different reports to you periodically throughout the year, provides us meeting that obligation and meeting those criteria as far as the state level and also the private audit level and even bond council level. Because they want to make sure that the elected officials are really fully informed on the finances of the city. So last time I told you I was going to do a comparison of August 2019 to August 2020 to show you the effects of COVID, and basically that is what I had done. And I had also given you a 5-year comparison, more for prepping for the budget conversation. So I just want to go over a few of the highlights of comparing 19 to 20. And first, I want to make sure, can everybody hear me okay? Because sometimes I have trouble with my earbuds. Okay. All righty. So I'm going to just highlight some of the major items. And I know Katie LaPerry-Shue had asked for some more information on the city clerk fee. So I included that in this report. So hopefully she will be satisfied with the numbers and the reporting on it. But one of our biggest items is sales tax. As of August, we were down by 203,000 or 8.35% as compared to last year. And as an updated number from our September payment, we're down year to date by 246,000 or 8.53%. I'm very pleased with this number considering all the challenges the local economy has had since March. So I'm hopeful that it will hold steady throughout the year, but only time is going to tell on that. The utility gross receipts tax, which is the taxes that we receive basically from NYSEG and the different energy companies, is down. I attribute that to just lack of activity and hoping that this quarter, we just got another check in the mail today. This quarter, this check was a little bit larger. So I'm hoping that that will start to tick up by the end of the year. City clerk fees, I showed you the different detail there. And again, it's all due to lack of activity and the different permits and different licenses. And the biggest item there is the parks and recreation charges. We're down of almost $24,000, and that's just because we haven't had any of the park events. Ambulance charges, year to date, we're down by $214,000 in recognized revenue. or 34, basically 34%. Calls are down by 384, which is about 27%. And there's a mixture of calls of ALS versus BLS, advanced life support versus basic life support. The advanced calls are down by 65% and BLS calls are down by 35%. And I just wanted to point out that had we not raised the ambulance rates effective January 1st of this year, we would be down approximately 139,000 more than we currently are.
Jenny, what was that increase just off the top of your head? Do you remember?
Yes, we were charging $1,000 for ALS and $900 for BLS. And we are now charging $1,600 for ALS and $1,400 for BLS.
And that's regulated by the federal government, right?
Well, it's not regulated by the federal government. It's really regulated by council as far as what council approves the fees to be. But what is regulated by federal government and different contracts, whoever participates with the insurance companies, is the reimbursement rate that we get from the various insurance companies and from Medicare and Medicaid.
Right, sorry. Yeah.
So even though we're charging $1,600 for an ALS call, we're only actually collecting about $500 by the time we get the contractual allowance. So by raising the actual charge, we raise the average collection from about $300 to $400 per call to about $450 to $550 per call. And if you take 2,200 calls, which is normally our average for a year, and multiply that by, $150 to $200 a year based on the mixture, we could have potentially raised an extra 300,000 this year, but because of COVID, that's just not going to happen.
Right. And so you said on a $1,600 ALS call, we're really receiving $500.
I want to say 500 to 550. I can get a more exact number for you.
No, that's okay. And then on the BLS, what do you think we're getting on average?
It's probably about $100 less.
Okay. So is that, when you're looking at your budget, is that the number? Is it the $500 or the $1,600 that you base your?
I look at the net number. I look at what we actually collect.
Okay. Okay, so we weren't basing the budget on $1,600 or $1,400.
Correct.
Okay.
Of our gross charges that we charge for our ambulance calls, about 48% of it gets written off either through bad debt or contractual allowances.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then I just had one other question on the utilities gross receipt tax. Do we have like a contract with Spectrum?
Spectrum is our franchise fee.
Right. Okay.
The gross utilities, that's by law, and that's on every utility bill. But for a franchise fee with Spectrum, that is through a franchise contract that we have.
Okay. And so we have a contract with them. When does that come due?
I don't remember. I know it
Okay.
was just voted upon in the past couple of years, and I don't know if it's a 5-year term. I'd have to refresh my memory on that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions before I continue? Okay. Airport fees and rentals, that's down just a little bit. We've lost one client, but we just gained another, so I'm assuming that is going to go back up. And the airport commissions on sale of supplies is basically our margin that we get on our airport fuel. And that's down about $20,000, but we did not have the Baseball Hall of Fame this year. So that is just based again on activity. Interest earnings, we're down about 75%. We're down $105,000 as compared to last year. And as we've talked about in previous meetings, that is because the federal interest rate dropped down to 0. They're expecting to hold that there for quite some time. So we will not be realizing our 2% gain that we had been realizing for the past couple of years. But on the other side of it, we also got our bonds at a very low rate. So that will save the taxpayer substantial costs in paying the interest back on the bonds that we just issued. And the rental of real property, that is down because of the lack of activity at the Armory. We usually have quite a few events that we hold there, which is not happening. Court fines down 44,000 and parking fines down 33,000. Again, lack of activity. Parking tickets when we have the colleges in town, that generates a lot of the parking ticket revenues. And also court fines with the different arrests, the different situations that our police officers have to respond to. But with the lack of activity within the city, those revenues are down. The following items are down, but not due to COVID. It's either just based on actual or it's based on formulas. The fire protection services of the town is down by 86,000 as compared to last year. That's based on formula. But for just on the next part of that is in 2021, we're going to realize a $141,000 gain. And again, that's based on actuals and that's formula driven. Insurance coveries, they're based on actual claims. We just received about 41,000 in insurance recovery. So the decrease that you see on the detailed report will be eliminated. Sale of scrap and equipment. We've been holding off on our surplus sales because of the COVID situation, but we have just started collecting on our auction site. So again, that decrease will be eliminated once those numbers get updated. State aid for our swimming pool program will be received. So even though right now it shows a negative of $5,000, that money will be received. And our state aid arterial maintenance, it's just timing with New York State as far as when we get that money. So again, that will be received. We have received additional money in our mortgage tax that has to do with people refinancing, and also the real estate business is really quite active at this time. So we've realized a $25,000 increase there. And we also realized a $30,000 increase in our court contract with the state as far as maintaining the court premises at the public safety building. So in highlighting those major areas, I just want to now get into the summary of the report, but if you have any other questions on the individual line items, just let me know. But as the report indicates, as of August, the city had realized a decrease in revenues of about $738,000, or about 7.3%. If the same percentage of loss continues throughout the year for each category, it's estimated that we will realize 1.25 million loss in revenues. And this estimate will be reduced, however, by other areas that we will probably receive gains on, but I'm not expecting that to be any more than $150,000. And the city received its first state aid payment this past week, and it was reduced by the 20%. It has not been confirmed that this is going to be permanent, but we're making the assumption that when we receive our major state aid in December, it will be reduced by the 20%. So that will be a loss of about $446,000. So including the state aid reduction and what we've estimated for all the other categories, we're going to have an estimated revenue loss of almost $1.7 million. And as a reminder, the estimates that we discussed back in May, we had a level 1 of 10% that estimated 1.26 million, and a level 2 of 18%, which estimated 1.8 million. So we're right around in between those numbers. But also, as discussed in May of 2020, the department heads went through their budgets line by line and found areas that they could either postpone, defer it, cancel it, try to find a better way to do it. Not that that is always their goal, but they came up with potential savings. We updated those estimates, and we've got about 892,000 of unrestricted expenditures and about 183,000 of restricted. The majority of the savings is associated with personnel costs for vacancies and their related expenses. For example, in the fire department, with those vacancies, we also have clothing, same as with the police department or the training or different areas like that. We also have postponement of various purchase services, reduced training costs due to having a lot of remote access for training now, or delaying it or not attending at all. Savings on estimated budget costs versus what the actuals actually came in at. And also the city's contribution to the airport fuel farm was a savings of $150,000 because now that project is being fully funded by the federal government and it's not going to require our local portion. So with the estimated savings of $1,075,000, when it's netted against the estimated revenue loss of almost 1.7, the city may realize a deficit by the end of the year of $621,000. But I have a however after that. The however is addressing the fire department overtime costs. The above numbers that I had just discussed with you did not address the fire overtime, and currently the overtime costs equals about $237,000, and the budget balance is about $5,800. I presented a budget transfer, which you approved earlier, to move another $38,000 into the overtime costs. So if this average does continue throughout the end of the year, we're probably going to incur at least $325,000 of overtime costs, plus all the related expenses that go with it. So it's going to pose about another $117,000 of costs. But when I looked back at the fourth quarter of 2019, this estimate may be low. So just keep that in mind. And again, if we can expand our part-time staff to assist the crews, that will help bring those overtime costs down. And I just want to emphasize that these estimates included in this narrative are based on the information I have at this moment in time. And they are subject to change depending on what the pandemic brings forward for the rest of the year, and also what actually happens with different activities. And in the upcoming budget meetings, as more information becomes available, as you know, if you attended last year's budget, you'll know that I will project what the year-end balances, fund balances will be. And I plan to do the same thing working with Joe for this year's budget. It's just going to be a little harder this time. And the estimates may not come in as exact as they did last year, but we're going to really give it, a thorough investigation and try to give you solid numbers. But I just want to preface it that, it's subject to change. So any questions on the general fund, any questions on any of the different reports that I gave you for the general fund, either with the comparing August of 19 to August of 20, or the 5-year comparison? I went back to 2015 and I showed you the different revenue sources and how they change from year to year. That's going to be more of a budget discussion, but if you have any questions, please let me know.
Guys, I open it up. Anybody have any questions? Mark's shaking his head no. Scott? John?
I'm gonna have to watch YouTube, Jenny. I'm sorry, it keeps
okay.
cutting in and out. And
that's okay. And any questions, just email me and I will answer the whole committee. So in case somebody might have the same question. But as far as the general fund, I think that I'm pleasantly pleased with, even though we're realizing a loss, I'm pleasantly pleased it's not as frightening as we thought it might be when we were discussing this back in May.
Right, but it really helped that the department heads, they went deep into their budget, right? We're looking at $892,000 from the department heads savings, correct?
Absolutely.
Right.
And because department heads were willing to not fill vacancies, postpone them, Greg went through his budget to see, he went line by line to see what he could postpone, put it off to 2021. Chief Brenner did the same thing. Chief Pigeon did the same thing. Every department head has been very, very conscientious of what they're ordering and trying to make things as efficient and, as essential as possible. So,
right.
I want to say this out loud. I'm very proud to be part of this team because you guys have a fantastic department head team along with the staff.
Yeah.
They always put the city's best interests first.
Good. No, that's obvious. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, and it is obvious. I mean, 892, that's what I was going to focus on as well. I didn't have questions. It was more of a thanks. And I don't know if this is the appropriate venue, but if both of you could bring back, at least my thanks, perhaps this committee's thanks to them for kind of digging deep into those budgets and addressing that. Because, you know, if we're not cutting 892 out of our budget and looking at deferring costs, we're coming up with someplace else, and the alternatives were quite concerning. So I really appreciate them digging deep. So thank you.
Right. So overall, Jenny, if I understand this correctly by your report, if we trend our revenue and our losses to the end of 2020, we're basically 620 in the hole.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Outside of the fire overtime.
Right.
Because that's very unpredictable.
Correct.
You know, I'm going to try to keep the transfers within the fire department. So the $80,000 that the chief offered up as savings may end up funding the overtime.
Okay.
You know, we're just, we'll handle it as we can.
Okay. Thank you for that report.
Now for the water fund, it's a little different for the water fund. The water fund's fund balance is not as strong as the sewer fund or the general fund. This fund needs to be closely monitored because the fund balance just is not there. So we have realized in meter sales right now of a decrease of about 105,000, which is about 6.5%. And our colleges about 162,000 or about 47%. And again, if you look at the fund in total, as of right now, we're down about 289,000 or about 14% comparing August 19 to August 20. And if these same percentages continue throughout the end of the year, we'll be having lost revenue about $417,000. But I have a however on this. And the reason being is we have two major accounts that are being analyzed, and probably correcting billings will be going out. So we will be receiving some additional revenues there. I'm guesstimating about $50,000, but don't quote me on that. Don't hold me to that number because the numbers are not finalized. Harvard College also has on-campus students for the full fall semester as of right now. So I'm hoping that will increase our water rents. SUNY also had students here for a short time, and they do have a couple hundred that are going to be here for the full semester. So I'm hoping that that is going to generate some more water rents. And the September water billings have not been completed yet. The readings will be done tomorrow. The bills will be generated this week. And so once I have those numbers, I'll have a better, again, more updated information to do better estimates. And also local activity has slightly increased due to the reopening plan by New York State. So I'm hoping that some of the restaurants and, you know, some of the other stores that might have been closed in the spring now have a little bit more activity. So again, the water fund, we will keep a close eye on it. I don't know if you have any questions there, but I can segue right into the sewer fund. The sewer fund rents for the general is just down about $6,500, but the college rents are down about $174,000, again about 49%. And also minor sales are down about $34,000. The minor sales are sales from where the hauling companies will bring their waste to dump it at the wastewater treatment plant. They're down for not only for COVID reasons, but also because of the activity that's going on down at the wastewater treatment plant, and also stopping accepting some of the customers for different reasons. And in the sewer fund, the year-to-date shows that we're down about approximately 225,000, again about 14.5%. And if these same percentages continue through the end of the year, we'll be down by approximately about 338,000. I expect that number will be adjusted in our favor for the same reasons that I talked about in the water fund. We have the two major accounts that will have some sewer additional billings. Again, with the Hartwick students, the SUNY students, the increase in activity in local businesses. And I also want you to realize that the decrease between the water and sewer has to do with there are town accounts that do not have sewer billings because the only thing the city provides them is their water. We do not provide them sewer services. So if you were trying to compare the sewer rents versus the water rents and why they didn't change by the same percentage, it's because of the town versus city accounts. Also, we had a town customer last year that had a huge leak, which generated about $50,000 of extra water rents because of the leak. That leak has now been fixed. So any questions on the sewer or water funds? Mark?
Thanks, Ginny. So I'm sorry, just if you could remind me, trying to remember prior to whenever I was council. So last year's budget, you had recommended, I think, increases in both the sewer fund and the water fund.
Yes.
But the council dropped those back or dropped one back. Can you walk me through that?
Yes. The recommendation was to raise the water rents by 5% and the sewer rents by 10%. The sewer rents were lowered to 5%. I will be making the same recommendation this year during the budget process. I actually had it written up in this narrative and then I took it out thinking it would be more of a budget discussion. But I have long-term vision, at least for the next 5 years, between our tax levy and our water rents and our sewer rents. I'm a strong believer in slow, steady increases. So you can balance the effect that you're having on the resident with also being able to fund the services that we're providing to the citizens. And by doing it in a slow, gradual manner, so we can be able to, they can be able to absorb it and we can be able to compound it at a slow, steady rate. Now, the sewer fund's got a strong fund balance, but if you look at the history that I gave you for the sewer fund, you will see that the same amount of revenues that we received in 2014 was basically the same amount of revenues that we received in 2018. That was a result of not adjusting the rates. I'm not criticizing any past decisions. It was the right decision at that moment in time, but it's an example of how if you do not adjust the rates at a slow, steady pace, you will be having increases in expenditures, but not any increases in revenues to fund the increases in expenses that are naturally just going to occur between inflation and salary increases and fringe benefits and things like that. So that's why looking long-term, slow, steady, constant. And that's the presentation that Greg and I want to be giving at the next Finance Committee meeting. We're going to be adding it onto the agenda to do the Waterworth presentation. Greg and I worked with Waterworth last week and we're very excited about showing you the software. So,
Ginny, hold on a second. I think Mark had another question.
Well, I was just going to comment and say, while you're right, maybe that is a real budget discussion. It's certainly helpful to keep that in mind as we're looking at this. So that's why I appreciate the clarification. It helps me kind of think forward to what we may need to do.
Thank you. And Mark, you endorsed for me that I should have kept my comments in there.
Well, will Waterworth go through what you're pointing out, Ginny, is what is the appropriate annual raise?
Yes, what Waterworth is going to do, it's going to show you history and projections. And it's going to layer the graphs and the visuals for you. It's going to show you operating expenses. It's going to show you debt expenses. It's going to show you capital project expenses. It's going to show you future capital project expenses and what it's going to cost. It will show you our cash flow depending on our expenditures. And it'll show you the points that Greg and I have decided that we want to keep our cash flow at a level of. We want to build in the water fund a $3 million reserve. That $3 million will be there for emergencies. It'll be there for rate adjustments. We are projecting after the 5 years of 5% increases that we could lower the increase to maybe 1 to 2%. But we've got to get that build up because we have so much infrastructure that needs to be repaired. We'll be doing the same thing for the sewer fund. But the sewer fund won't be this year. The sewer fund will be next year. But it's the same goal. So,
Okay.
Any other questions or before I give you my conclusion? So in my conclusion, like I said before, in my opinion, on the bright side, these estimates have fallen within the first two levels of the scenarios that we examined in May. But again, we need to be watchful on upcoming events. And I have stated before that the general sewer and OPT funds have strong fund balances to see us through. However, the water fund may need closer monitoring, or does need closer monitoring. And I also want to thank the department heads for continuing to thoroughly review their budgets and expenditures, and for proposing possible savings for 2020. And I'm sure they'll take the same approach for the 2021 budget. And I also want to repeat the mayor's words. I thank all those that came here before us, and that they were good stewards of the taxpayers' funds. And because of the decisions and the handlings of how things were done then, we have these strong fund balances to see us through this crisis. And so I just wanted to get that on the public record.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Any other thoughts or concerns from committee members, John or Scott?
No, not from me.
Okay. Scott?
No, I just don't like technology today.
It doesn't like you.
I might be sucking all of it in for my brain power. I don't know.
Okay. Well, according to the agenda, we're down to executive session. Is there a need to go into executive session tonight?
If I may, I mean, there was one matter, but I believe that Gary had said that he wanted to defer it to the full council.
Okay.
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, we can.
No, we can wait until next Tuesday to discuss it. I'm sorry, Katie, I didn't get all that.
I just didn't want you to think I had forgotten.
Okay.
Okay. Well, and I do have two topics that I'd like to bring up, if it's okay.
Oh, okay.
One is I verified with Dave Merzick that we don't have to take this to council, but I want to inform you that the governor had issued a order that re-levies for our unpaid utility bills have quite a bit of restrictions this year. And David and I are addressing it, but we just want the council members to be informed that the full re-levy of our water outstanding, our uncollected water and sewer bills probably will not happen because of the law. Anybody who qualifies under a COVID financial hardship, we need to put on payment plans and not re-levy on those accounts.
So at this time, Ginny, what type of percentage of our customer base is in that situation?
We've got high coverage. I don't want to quote the percentage right now because we just posted some more water payments today, so I can email you with an update on that.
Okay.
And but just so you know, the September monthly billings, the third quarter quarterly billings, and the late notices on the water bills for any unpaid accounts will be going out this week. With those notices, we have to inform the receiver of the governor's order. They have to then formally apply to us for a hardship case. And once that happens, that's when the re-levy situation kicks in.
Okay.
Okay. And the second thing is I wanted to discuss this more when we were reviewing the budget transfers, and I just want to give the committee a heads up of what my plan is for year end. We are going to be having some retirements this year, with the city clerk retiring, possibly a firefighter retiring, Larry Harrison retiring, things like that. We have a reserve set up for employees' final pays. Reserves, when we set up restricted fund balances in those reserves, they are not supposed to sit idle. They are supposed to be used occasionally, continually, and then replenished. We have not touched this particular reserve for employee leave payoffs since 2007, I think it is. So what I would like to do is, when those final pays get calculated for the employees that are retiring, I would like to have the budget amendments to utilize those reserves so we are not criticized that the funds have sat idle for too long.
Sorry, I had to move inside.
Did you hear that,
So,
Len?
yeah, no, I heard it all.
Okay.
So I guess we have a little bit of a time period to kind of digest that.
Yeah, it's just, I just want to give you the heads up that when those final pays are calculated for the different retirees, the budget amendment that I'll be bringing forward, because we do not include in our adopted budget expenditures for potential retirees.
Agreed.
So when I bring budget amendments to you to fund those final payments, I'm going to be asking for it to come from the reserve that has not been touched in a number of years.
Any questions, comments, or concerns from committee members? Okay. Not hearing any. Is there anything that anybody wants to add to the agenda?
I like number 6.
You like number 6? You want to adjourn? All you have to do is make the motion, Scott.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
And John will probably second it.
No, I want to stay on.
John, we miss you.
I got nothing else to do.
All right, buddy. Well, I guess that's it for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.